Hello, my friends! I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Welcome back to another episode of our PettyRevenge series, where you get to hear tales of revenge and enjoy a few laughs along the way. In this episode, we have 8 stories. The first story is about how Opie deals with a detergent thief. The second story is a bit longer and details how Opie handles some pranksters who try to pay with pennies. The third story is a bit of sibling rivalry because those stories are always fun. I hope you stick around for the stories today, have a few chuckles, and please hit that subscribe button for future videos. This first story is titled, You Like the Laundry Soap? Bye-bye. How about some fun soap just for you? Here's how it goes. This happened a while ago, but I just found this platform, so here's the tale. I used to live on the 3rd floor of an apartment building with its laundry room in the basement. That meant 4 flights of stairs for me, no elevator, and I had a newborn, so I was doing a lot of laundry. In the laundry room, we had cubbies for our soap and supplies. I'd lived there for a year and never had an issue leaving my soap down there. Apparently, some new tenants moved in and started using my soap. When I realized it, I left a note asking them to stop. Nothing changed, they kept using it. Okay, so now I was really annoyed. I had 2 bottles of soap, one blue-colored and one clear-colored. I marked the bottles clearly, stating they belonged to me and that nobody else should use them. I made it very clear. Then I filled the blue soap bottle with blue dye and the clear soap bottle with unscented bleach and waited. It didn't take long. The next morning I heard screaming from the laundry room, 4 floors down, and I still heard it. I waited a bit and ventured downstairs. In the laundry room I found a bunch of wet, bleach-stained clothes in the garbage. 4 days later I saw a young man get into a car wearing a blue-stained t-shirt. Don't touch my stuff. I'd say Opie was pretty clever for that one, but hey, if you see a note clearly stating not to use something and you use it anyway, that's at your own risk. This next story is titled, I Absolutely Love People Who Pay with Pennies, Seriously. 4 years ago I was working as a cashier at a wacky mart on a register that handled all the tobacco and alcohol sales. It was 10 o'clock at night when 2 young men, probably in their early 20s, came up to the counter. They had 3 random novelty items. I don't remember exactly what they were, but it was strange to get such odd items that late at night. Maybe it was for some weird college party. I don't know. It's a college town, so I saw a lot of unusual stuff from frat groups. I scanned the items and told them their total was $22 and some cents. Grinning at each other, they reached into their jackets and slammed down 2-gallon-sized Ziploc bags filled entirely with pennies. I locked eyes with them, but they didn't even look back. Everyone else in line groaned and moved to other registers. These 2 knew what they were doing, but they didn't know what they were in for because I was prepared for this. I grinned back at them because I was getting paid for this, and these pranksters were here for their own amusement. Here's how the conversation went between me and the ringleader. The other guy was silent and awkward. I asked, Is this $22 and some cents? The ringleader stayed quiet. I pressed, Did you count it? He replied, Nope. I asked, Well, are you going to? Again he said, Nope. I continued, Is it at least $22 and some cents? He shrugged and said, I don't know. That's your job to find out. At this point, my friendly coworker chimed in and said, Hey, you guys can use the self-checkout. It can take all your coins at once. But the ringleader was adamant and replied, Nope, don't trust them. His partner laughed and added, Doesn't count all your change, right? Realizing they wanted to inconvenience my night, I turned to my coworker and said, I got this. I unpacked the Ziploc bags and dumped all the pennies onto the counter. It was a beautiful, massive mess of copper, and I dove into it like I was digging through a dumpster. The 2, still avoiding my gaze, started chuckling as if they were stripping away my dignity. They whispered to each other, Dude, oh my gosh, dude, I can't believe it. This is hilarious. I counted each penny one by one. My coworker came over and said, I guess I'll help you count this. I told her, Don't worry about it. She looked confused, then put on her get-down-to-business face. We worked out a system where we counted 10 pennies, made a pile, and then with 10 stacks of 10 pennies, we created $1 piles. We made progress, slowly but surely. Some customers came to the line, but we advised them to move to another register. Some looked confused, but when they saw the counter covered in pennies, they understood. A few decided to wait, but when they realized it wasn't going to be quick, they left too. Another register opened in the liquor department, so it wasn't too bad for other customers. We got to about $12, about 10 minutes in, when I accidentally knocked over the piles. I said, Whoops, I'm sorry. My coworker caught my grin, and I gave her a wink, motioning for her to leave. She said, You know what? I think it's better if I let you do this. I'm just getting in your way. She left. I turned to the two guys, who were stunned at the fallen piles of pennies. I said to the ringleader, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to count all of this again." His smile faded as he responded, okay." I started from zero, counting slower than ever. When I got to about $7, I suddenly exclaimed, "Oh my gosh, what? I lost count. I'd better start all over again." The ringleader was shocked and said, "Really?" I replied, "Oh yeah, man, I'm terribly sorry, but I could be in trouble if my register doesn't have the right amount of cash. I also don't want to rip you off, just in case you have over $30 in pennies here. It's best for both of us if I start over." He was silent. About an hour later, my manager walked by, looked at me, and I smiled at him. He glanced at the counter and walked away without a word. I eventually counted all the change, and surprisingly, they only had $18. I said to them, I think this is $18. The duo was dead silent, looking done for the night. I added, "I'll recount it. I might have counted wrong." I recounted and said, "I think this is actually $19 and some cents." Without a word, the ringleader whipped out a $5 bill. I said, "Seriously, you had cash?" He told me he needed to get rid of his change. I replied, "No problem. I'll just recount this again to make perfectly sure this is $19 since I counted $18 the first time." He stared at me and said, "Are you kidding me?" I shook my head and said, "No, I'm completely serious." He pulled out a $20 bill from his pocket and tossed it at me. Internally, I was floored because they were smart enough to have a backup plan, and he'd been touching his cash the entire time. I took the cash, completed the transaction, gave him his change, thanked him, and wished him a good night. The two started putting their pennies back into the Ziploc bags, and I didn't help them at all. I watched them just as they had watched me. Lots of pennies dropped to the floor, but they didn't bother picking them up. They looked like their souls had been drained. It was past midnight, and I clocked out way later than I was supposed to. Many of my coworkers gave me thumbs up or said good night. Even my manager told me, "Good job." I went back to the dorms after such a great petty penny night and crashed. Strange to say, but I'd love to count pennies again. Seriously. This is one of the best petty revenge stories I've heard, and had the honor of sharing in a long time. I loved how the kids came in so smug, and it totally backfired on them. Opie needs to be my friend right now. This next story is titled, "Sister Always Steals My Food, so I Make a Fool of Myself on Her Graduation to Stop Her." I come from a family of 6, my parents, my older sister, my older brother, my little brother, and me. To encourage good behavior, our parents would often buy us our favorite candy to munch on in the car. I've never been big on sharing just for the sake of it. My parents, however, were trying to raise respectful and generous kids and often forced me to share things, even when I didn't want to. That was fine, except my sister abused this system. She would say she didn't want a bag of candy, but once we were on the road, she'd start taking candy from all 3 brothers, and that really got under my skin. I didn't get candy often because my mom didn't like feeding us super sugary food. So, when I got my own bag of Sour Patch watermelon candies, I wanted to eat every last one myself. My parents would always offer to buy her a bag of candy, but she'd refuse because she knew she could take from the rest of us. After a while, I started refusing her requests for candy, but that didn't sit well with my mom, who saw it as selfish, so she'd force me to hand over the candy. One time when I bought my bag at CVS, I even said, "Sister, I'm not giving you any of my candy. If you want Sour Patch, buy your own right now." She responded, "I'm fine. I don't want a whole bag of candy." Fast forward 20 minutes into the car ride, and my father was asking us to give candy to my sister as I sat fuming. This went on for years, my whole life really, and I hated it. I would hide my candy when I got it and try to keep it out of her reach, but a parent would always intervene. Fast forward to my sister's college graduation. She was 22, and I was a senior in high school. We were at her school, celebrating at a fancy restaurant after her graduation ceremony that morning. In attendance were our immediate and some extended family, some of my sister's close friends, and her long-term boyfriend, whom I was meeting for the first time. Enough people for what happened next to be embarrassing for my family. After the meal, my mother offered to buy a nice dessert for anyone who wanted one. I ordered a vanilla bean cheesecake with a burnt sugar bird's nest on top. My mother repeatedly offered to buy my sister anything she wanted, but my sister said she couldn't possibly eat a full dessert and turned it down every time. When the food arrived, everyone was staring at my dessert. I was seated at the head of the table, in full view of everyone, so it was hard not to notice. The cake slice was large and delicious looking, and the burnt sugar bird's nest was huge, hollow on the inside like an old-timey brass globe, and honestly pretty impressive. Right as the food was placed in front of us, my sister said, "I'll just have a bite of everyone's." At that point, I was seeing red, having flashbacks to all the times my food had been taken. Logically, the right thing would have been to just give her one bite. It was her graduation, the cake was huge, and it wouldn't have been a big loss. But it had become a matter of principle. So, the moment she said that, in one swift motion, in full view of everyone at the table, I swept up my slice of cheesecake and stuffed the entire thing into my mouth at once, shattering the sugar nest, with crumbs falling everywhere. This was in front of my whole family and some of my sister's college friends, who had never met me before. My sister stared, appalled, and said, "Did you just do that so I wouldn't get any?" With my cheeks puffed out like a chipmunk, face covered in cheesecake, I looked her dead in the eyes and nodded. There was a moment of shocked silence, followed by a very tense car ride home, but to this day, she never asks for anything from me anymore. I was in Opie's shoes when I was a kid, except it was a bully at my school who always wanted my snacks during recess. For the longest time, whenever I opened a pack of Gushers or gummy worms, I'd immediately toss them all into my mouth, suck on them for a good 10 seconds, then spit them back into the bag. He never knew he was always taking disgusting, slobbery snacks from me. This story is titled, "Pregnant Coworker Gets Her Just Desserts." Alright, here we go. I work in a small family-owned office that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are about 25 employees total, but only 12 of us work in the office. The rest are off-site. There's a woman here. Let's call her Jill. Jill is almost 40 years old and has been with the company for nearly 10 years. For context, I've been here just over 4 years. Since I was hired, Jill has never agreed to switch shifts with anyone. Not once, not a single time has she done anyone a favor. Yet, she has no problem constantly asking others to switch shifts with her. A year into my employment, my brother needed emergency surgery, and I begged her to cover my shift the next day. All she said was, "Sunday is my only day to sleep in." Sorry, I never forgot that. Sure, she's not obligated to switch shifts, it's her choice, but it's no surprise she's universally disliked in the office. Anyway, Jill got pregnant about 7 months ago, completely by accident, and was quite freaked out for a while. She's been nauseous her entire pregnancy, and even keeps a trash can next to her desk, just in case she can't make it to the bathroom. Yesterday, around 12:30 in the afternoon, she was feeling really sick and asked our boss if she could leave early. He told her she could only leave if someone agreed to finish her shift. Our shifts are mainly from 7 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon to 11 at night, and 11 at night to 7 in the morning, with periodic shifts as needed. I was working yesterday, Monday, scheduled to leave at 3 in the afternoon, while Jill was scheduled until 7 in the evening. The only other person who could have stayed had plans right after his shift, so I was her only option. She waited until 2:45 in the afternoon, then sauntered up to my desk with puppy dog eyes fully engaged and asked me to stay for the rest of her shift because she was feeling really ill. Now, I'm on Reddit a lot, and I never forgot a post about a manager refusing to let an employee be at her dying son's bedside. There was a line in that text exchange I loved, and I'd been waiting for the perfect moment to use it. This was it. I swiveled to face her, looked her right in the eyes, trailed my gaze down to her bulging, unplanned pregnant stomach, and pointedly said, "A lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part." Then I swiveled back and continued working without another word. Her face instantly dropped. It looked like someone had let out a bad smell right in front of her, the way it twisted. She didn't say a thing and just waddled back to her desk, absolutely furious. 15 minutes later, I stood up and loudly announced my departure, adding that if anyone needed me, I'd be at home taking a nap. Oh, what a great petty revenge. Karma comes back to bite you, doesn't it? I love that part about going home to nap. This next story is titled, "I Don't Need Headphones, That's a You Problem." I was riding an Uber pool this morning when an incredibly inconsiderate individual got into the passenger seat. He pulled out his phone and started watching videos at full volume, blasting music. I asked, "Do you happen to have headphones?" He responded, "No. Why would I need headphones?" I said, "Because you're in a car with other people, and it's considerate not to force everyone else to listen to your videos and music." He replied, "That sounds like a you problem," and went back to watching his video. So, I pulled out my phone and blasted Baby Shark from the back seat for the rest of the ride. If he turned around and got upset, well, that's a you problem. That's solid petty revenge. You know what would have been even better? blasting something totally unexpected like a loud sound effect to throw him off. This one's titled, I cut my lawn in random directions because it makes my neighbor crazy. My neighbor is a retired 70-something former preacher or pastor, something like that. He's also a judgmental jerk who, despite not living in a neighborhood with an HOA, makes weekly rounds looking for minor code violations to report to the city so owners get fined. He mows his lawn twice a day during the summer and has a lawn so pristine it would make Hank Hill ecstatic. That's quite the description. I take pride in my yard, but it's 70% native plants and wildflowers, with a small patch of grass in the front. I don't water the grass because pouring water on the ground seems pointless to me. I mow every 5 days, less if there's a dry spell and the grass grows slower. When I mow, I cut all the grass but focus on leaving a path as confusing as possible. Sometimes I attempt a checkerboard pattern and then veer off into spirals. Other times I approach it with an even more abstract style. The grass doesn't mind, and I enjoy the challenge of thinking up new ways to mow. Today, I saw my neighbor standing out front with his troublemaking grandson, who was sent to live with him for some reason. He was complaining about something, throwing his hands up in the air, clearly exasperated. Then he gestured toward my lawn and made a little spiral gesture while contorting his face in disgust. I don't know exactly what he said, but I imagine he was lecturing his grandson about how, if he didn't get his life together, he'd end up like me, the neighbor with the weird lawn. Small victories, you know? We made it through that story. This one's titled, A Lady Almost Hit the Front of My Car Trying to Pull into a Parking Spot I Was Turning Into, so I just sat there. The title sounds pretty petty already. I was at Costco, needing dog food, and it was ridiculously busy for a Monday. There were barely any parking spots until I spotted one at the end of the lot. I made my way down the aisle and was about to turn into the spot when a lady ran over the curb and almost hit me to take it. Thankfully, I tapped my brakes in time, or she would have taken off my bumper. I looked up, and she was shaking her head and wagging her finger in a no motion at me. I was like, what? Okay, I thought, I'll just wait for her to back up since I was clearly turning into the spot. She didn't budge. My girlfriend was with me, and I was annoyed that this lady wasn't moving, so I gave my girlfriend my Costco card and just sat in the aisle in a face-off with her. She went inside, got the dog food, came back out, and loaded up the car. Then she pushed the cart into the spot we were waiting for and hopped into her car. The look on her face was enough to give me satisfaction for a week. She had to get out and move the cart so she could park once I reversed through the entire aisle. Worth it. First of all, how long were you guys in that standstill? Costco on a regular day is already hectic, and nobody goes to Costco for just one thing. You go in, see some deals, maybe grab some food, and next thing you know you've got 20 items and spent $200. That's Costco. Alright, this is the last story of the episode, titled, Tell Me to Cover Up in My Own Yard, Behold My Thighs Every Summer. This is more of an annual revenge thing. About 5 years ago, a greedy councilman put up 3 two-story apartments next door to our house. One of these has a direct view of our pool area, and a grouchy woman and her husband moved in. Anyway, as we've done for the 15 summers before they arrived, we went for an afternoon swim. The woman was on her balcony and made a huge dramatic fuss about going back inside and closing her curtains. She then screeched at her husband when he tried to go outside. It's not like we were indecent or anything, just in our swimsuits. We laughed about it and continued having a nice afternoon at the pool while she roasted inside. A few days later, I decided it was too hot to stay inside and went for a dip. I was in the middle of university, and this was the only time I left the house between assignments and tests. Now, I don't have a body that stops traffic. I'm a regular plump human whose Dorito-loving habits have started to show around my lower body. I took off my sarong and jumped into the pool. After a few minutes, I sensed someone watching me. I looked up to find the man on the balcony smoking and staring right at me. I made an aggressive gesture, and he scurried back inside, only to return with his wife in tow. The conversation went something like this. She said, "Excuse me, could you not swim when my son's out here smoking? He just lost his job, and this is the time he'd normally smoke, and you're out here practically naked distracting him." I replied, "He's the age of my dad. He can smoke on your front balcony. I've lived here for 15 years, so you can't blame me for being here, and I'm not naked, I'm swimming." She responded, "I'm just asking you to be considerate, okay?" At this point, her grown son was looking smug, and I said, "If you don't like it, then move," and continued swimming. They stood there for another 5 minutes before going inside, closing the sliding patio doors and curtains. Also, I wasn't naked or indecent. I was wearing a full swimsuit because I'm a little insecure about my belly. See the part about the Doritos. I told my parents, and the next day, my mom joined me in the pool to show them, and I quote, what real traumatizing thighs look like. That got me thinking, though. I could make their summers miserable. So now, every summer, weather permitting, I go out and flash my thighs for a few hours in the afternoon, letting them roast in their apartment. It's been 5 years of this, and I'll continue doing it until the day I leave home. Edit, I want to thank everyone who's given me ideas to be even pettier. My mom and I are getting a good chuckle out of them, and now I'm on Amazon looking for the hairiest swimsuit I can find. You all have been so wholesome about this. My Dorito thighs thank you for the acceptance. A petty revenge that happens over and over again is the best kind. As a reader chiming in on these stories, I'm loving the mix of clever comebacks, petty justice, and pure audacity in this batch of revenge tales. They're equal parts hilarious and satisfying, with some real gems of people getting what they deserve. Here's my take on each, written like I'm dropping a comment on a forum. You like the laundry soap? Bye-bye. How about some fun soap just for you? Oh, this is Chef's Kiss Petty. The soap thief ignoring ops notes and still using their detergent deserved that blue dye and bleach surprise. Hearing screams from 4 floors up? Iconic. The mental image of the thief tossing their ruined clothes in the trash and that guy rocking a blue-stained shirt is pure gold. OP's creativity in setting the trap is next level. Marking the bottles wasn't enough, so they went full sabotage. Gotta agree with the commenter, if you see a don't touch note and still use it, you're rolling the dice. Anyone else got stories of catching a thief with a trap like this? I absolutely love people who pay with pennies, seriously. This is the petty revenge masterpiece I didn't know I needed. Those smug pranksters thinking they could waste OP's night with bags of pennies got outplayed so hard. Counting each penny one by one, accidentally knocking over the piles and restarting twice? That's dedication to the bit. The ringleader pulling out cash after an hour of this is just the cherry on top. Bet they felt so dumb. Love how the manager and co-workers were in on it, giving OP thumbs ups. The commenter's right. This is one of the best petty revenge stories out there. Ever had to deal with pranksters trying to mess with your shift like this? Sister always steals my food, so I make a fool of myself on her graduation to stop her. Oh man, I felt this one in my soul. The sister mooching candy for years and parents enabling it would drive anyone nuts. Stuffing an entire cheesecake in your mouth at her graduation dinner? That's a power move I'll never forget. The chipmunk cheeks and crumbs everywhere in front of her friends and boyfriend? Priceless. The shocked silence and tense car ride home say it all. She finally got the message. The commenter's story about spitting gushers back into the bag to trick a bully is straight up savage and so relatable. Siblings can be the worst. Any other epic food revenge stories out there? Pregnant coworker gets her just desserts. Yes, Jill got what was coming. Never switching shifts for anyone but always begging for favors? That's peak selfishness. OP hitting her with the lack of planning line right to her pregnant belly was cold and perfect. The face twist reaction and her waddling back to her desk furious? I'm living for it. Announcing the nap plans as they left was the ultimate mic drop. The commenter's right. Karma came back to bite Jill hard. Gotta wonder how she's gonna survive the rest of her pregnancy with no office allies. Anyone else used a Reddit-inspired line to shut down a coworker? I don't need headphones, that's a you problem. This Uber pool guy blasting videos without headphones is the definition of inconsiderate. Op firing back with Baby Shark for the whole ride? Genius. Turning his "that's a you problem" line against him was so satisfying. Bet he regretted not having those headphones. The commenter's suggestion of blasting a random sound effect is hilarious. Wish Op had gone for a foghorn or something. Public transport jerks like this need a taste of their own medicine. Got any other stories of shutting down rude strangers in shared spaces? I cut my lawn in random directions because it makes my neighbor crazy. This is petty perfection. The retired preacher neighbor snitching on code violations while mowing his lawn twice a day sounds insufferable. OP turning their lawn into a chaotic spiral checkerboard masterpiece just to mess with him is so creative. The image of him ranting to his grandson about the weird lawn guy is comedy gold. No HOA, no problem, OP's wildflower yard sounds awesome, and the neighbor can seethe all he wants. The commenter's Hank Hill reference had me laughing. Spot on. Anyone else driving their neighbors nuts with yard shenanigans? A lady almost hit the front of my car trying to pull into a parking spot I was turning into, so I just sat there. This Costco parking lot standoff is peak petty. The lady nearly crashing into OP's car and then wagging her finger like she was in the right? The audacity? OP just sitting there while their girlfriend shopped and then leaving a cart in the spot? Absolute legend move. Her face when she had to move the cart herself must have been glorious. The commenter's so right. Costco trips always turn into a $200 adventure. How long was that face-off, OP? Share more parking lot revenge stories, anyone? Tell me to cover up in my own yard. Behold my thighs every summer. This one's my favorite for the sheer commitment. The grouchy neighbor complaining about OP's swimsuit and blaming them for distracting her jobless son? Ridiculous. OP and their mom flashing their traumatizing thighs every summer to make her roast in her apartment is hilarious and so well-deserved. The Amazon hunt for a hairy swimsuit? I'm dying. The commenter's love for the annual revenge is spot on. Repetitive petty is the best kind. Gotta respect OP's confidence rocking that pool time. Anyone else got nosy neighbors who tried to police your own property? I hope you guys enjoyed the stories in this episode. If you liked the video, hit that thumbs up button. If you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on notifications so you don't miss future revenge stories. I upload almost every day. See you guys in the next one!